The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Extreme cold, heavy snow, and ice alerts. A third of the country dealing with severe winter weather. Just how long this latest blast will last.
Today is the first step of a long and difficult journey, but an important one. And President Trump is committed to bringing an end to this conflict. Peace
talks begin to end the war in Ukraine, but without Ukrainian officials present, what is really on the table in the negotiations with Russia? And then 37 states have legalized sports gambling in the last 7 years. Just how much money is now being waged across the country and the health risks that stem from increased betting. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, we're glad you're here with us. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and right now, over 145 million Americans, they are under alerts for severe winter weather, extreme cold, or wind chills. A storm that's bringing heavy snow and sleet to the central U.S. tonight will reach the southern mid-Atlantic tomorrow. Parts of Virginia and North Carolina could get over 6 inches of snow, freezing rain and ice. That's expected in several southern states. Heavy rain and scattered thunderstorms are forecast from Texas to Louisiana tonight, moving to the southeast tomorrow with flash flooding possible. The system will move off the east coast tomorrow night. Record-breaking cold is also forecast this week. Temps are below average in much of the east and well below zero in parts of the northern and central U.S. Wind chills could drop to a dangerous negative 60 degrees. By Thursday morning, the cold air will expand southward. Many temperature records are expected to be broken from the Central Plains to the Gulf Coast. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is warning residents and officials to prepare.
Going into Wednesday and Thursday, there will be widespread freezing across almost the entire state of Texas, and even temperatures down to near 0 degrees, with wind chill factors being below 0 degrees.
And new video out of Toronto of the Delta flight that crashed and flipped over on the runway yesterday. You can see that impact if you take a look at this video on your screen. The plane hits the tarmac and there's a fire. Remarkably, no one died. We learned today of the 21 people injured, only 2 remain hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries. Canadian authorities say it's still too early to say if extreme weather and high winds caused the crash. Shelter-in-place orders are still in effect in Abington Township, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly. This after a massive warehouse fire last night. The fire has been contained. Thankfully, no injuries have been reported. Businesses within a 1-mile radius are told to remain closed until further notice, and residents are asked to avoid the area as officials are continuing to monitor air and water quality. Top American and Russian officials meeting in person today for the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine almost 3 years ago. The National News Desk, Sandra El-Nishar, reports on what came out of those talks.
From Saudi Arabia's capital city, top American and Russian officials reestablishing in-person communication as the Trump administration seeks an end to Russia's war in Ukraine.
The work remains. Today is the first step of a long and difficult journey.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the goal is to see an end to the conflict that is fair, enduring, and sustainable.
In order for a conflict to end, everyone involved in that conflict has to be okay with it.
Left out of these talks is the country that's been invaded.
Ukraine perceives any negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine as those with no results. We cannot recognize anything or any agreements about us without us.
Russian officials looking pleased following Tuesday's meeting, already talking about ways it can collaborate with the United States.
There are different things we can do jointly in Arctic.
A concept difficult for some to fathom in a moment when the U.S. holds sanctions against Russia intended to cripple its economy.
Watching these talks from afar, European NATO allies the Trump administration is pressuring to dramatically increase their defense spending so the U.S. can prioritize threats in other parts of the world. Here's UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement. but there must be a US backstop.
A U.S. security guarantee. What would that look like? Starmer and President Trump will likely discuss that next week when they meet in Washington. After the trip, Starmer plans to huddle with European leaders for a second time after their summit in Paris Monday, hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron, who is keeping Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky informed. The Ukrainian leader says, "We agreed to stay in constant contact as major decisions are being made. Ensuring a robust and lasting peace is a must, and that can only be achieved through strong security guarantees." In Washington, I'm Atrell Nashar reporting.
U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan says she will allow the Department of Government Efficiency to continue to access data from government agencies. Chutkan says while she found legitimate questions to DOJ's authority, she did not see evidence of potential harm outside of a generalized fear that it could be happening. Therefore, she did not grant the restraining order against the department. This as the ripple effects of DOJ's data inquiry for agency information continue. The acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration has now resigned. The Associated Press says King left instead of giving DOJ access to sensitive information. President Trump has nominated a financial tech executive, Frank Bisignano, to run the Social Security Administration once he's confirmed by the Senate. A new immigration landscape is taking shape as the new White House border czar says one day this weekend included just 229 encounters of undocumented immigrants along the entire southwest border. Compare that to more than 10,000 a day at some point during the recent surge under President Biden. National correspondent Christine Frizzau has more on what the next steps of their plan may entail.
On the ground, immigration officials say the change has been dramatic. The U.S. military assisting agents with border security and surveillance with new posts for the new mission.
We didn't get a lot of notice, but that's okay because we are the Army and we know how to adapt and be flexible.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection just revealing the number of migrant apprehensions dropped 85% between January 21st, the day after Donald Trump took office, and the end of the month.
We're all working together to increase those numbers until we can eradicate once and for all every illegal alien gang member and public safety threat and national security threat in this country. It's all on. Our foot's on the gas.
White House border czar Tom Homan also celebrating interior arrests of criminal migrants, which he says are up 137%. Their mugshots often posted online with crimes that range from money laundering to attempted rape to murder. The Department of Homeland Security out with this new warning.
Leave now. If you don't, we will find you and we will deport you. You will never return.
But many Americans are also voicing concern, some protesting the new policies, which they say have spread fear throughout communities and hurt those who are not criminals.
Don't sign anything!
This footage from a targeted enforcement operation earlier this month in Denver.
I answered the door. They said, we need an ID. Like, okay, what for? Clearly, I'm not what you're looking for. And then I gave them an ID so they would move on, and they asked me to tattle on my neighbors, which I didn't do.
So this is the new reality in so many communities where undocumented migrants are no longer leaving their homes to go to work or even the grocery store. As top Trump officials celebrate their progress, they are at the same time insisting they're not satisfied. They're saying thousands more criminals that they are hoping to deport are out there, and they want to do so at a rapid rate, Dee Dee.
Christine, we're also learning about plans by the Trump White House to crack down on Mexican cartels. This has developed into what appears to be an aggressive attempt by the Trump administration to go after street gangs and other criminal organizations.
Yeah, on his first day, Donald Trump signed an executive order calling for a crackdown on major cartels. Now we're learning the State Department is right now drawing up a list to designate several criminal groups as terrorist organizations. I should say, though, this is likely to prompt some pushback from the Mexican government, which the White House, of course, also wants to work with.
All happening very quickly. Live from Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzau, thank you. As border enforcement increases inside the U.S., Mexican officials have announced they, too, have made significant arrests and seizures. This weekend, in fact, in a raid of drug cartel facilities in Sinaloa, more than 440 pounds of methamphetamine worth almost $40 million was confiscated. This is just the latest in a series of drug smuggling crackdowns Mexico has conducted since President Trump postponed a 25% tariff on our southern neighbor until March. It is still unclear if Trump will postpone the trade threat again. 800 nurses braved the cold to strike for a second day at 3 separate Geisinger health facilities in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. The Service Employees International Union, which represents the nurses, says they're seeking higher wages, better health care, as well as more staff.
There's over 300 positions that currently need to be filled for registered nurses, and Geisinger insists on continuing to use travel nurses.
The union says these travel nurses are paid more than permanent staff. The planned strike is expected to last until Saturday night, but Geisinger says their facilities remain open to their patients. Neither side has indicated if contract negotiations are ongoing. Abortion access after 24 weeks has been restored in Missouri for now. A Missouri judge ruled against the licensing requirement voted on by the state in the November election, saying it is discriminatory. Planned Parenthood sued to overrule the measure. The issue is not settled yet, as a bench trial is set for next year between Planned Parenthood and the state. Cell phones are now banned in one of the biggest public school districts in the country. A new law restricting cell phone use during the school day takes effect today in the Los Angeles Unified School District. Students have to keep their phones in their backpacks, pouches, or other containers, depending on the school. There are some exceptions, like emergency situations. The district hopes this will improve students' engagement and well-being. The rest of the state will have to follow suit by July 2026. California, as you take a look at this map, is one of 8 states that currently have school phone bans or restrictions in place. 23 other states have proposed them. Wisconsin, New York, and D.C. are the latest to introduce legislation. Coming up next, a change to the plan for Hamas to release more hostages this week as peace negotiations continue, and the potential risks to a favorite snack, why the risk level was raised to a recall of millions of granola bars. Then, how D.C. area figure skaters are honoring their peers lost in the tragic plane crash last month. We're back in 90 seconds. The death toll from severe flooding in parts of the south and east is now up to at least 16 people. Today, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear confirmed a man and woman from Jefferson County are dead. Officials are cleaning up the damage as they also prepare for several inches of snow forecast in the state. The Louisville mayor said water levels could keep rising because of the snow. Now a live look over Vatican City. Today, Vatican officials say that Pope Francis has developed bilateral pneumonia, meaning the infection is now in both lungs. The 88-year-old is still considered in stable condition but remains hospitalized in Rome. All of his scheduled engagements are postponed as he receives treatment. New York Governor Kathy Hochul weighing whether or not to remove Mayor Eric Adams from office as she met with New York City leaders. Here's the National News Desk, Kayla Gaskins.
An emergency meeting held Tuesday in Manhattan. Governor Kathy Hochul and top city leaders weighing NYC Mayor Eric Adams' political future as he fights to remain in power amid scandal and legal trouble. Calls for his resignation echoing through his own party. Adams remaining defiant.
I took a pledge to the flag of the United States of America. All right. I took a pledge to the people of this city. All right. And I'm going to fight for you.
The mayor confirming Monday 4 of his deputies stepped down. The resignations following Adams' decision to cooperate with the Trump administration last week by allowing ICE agents into Rikers Island jail facilities.
Eric Adams has been incredibly courageous in speaking out against his own party when many Democrats refused to do so about the terrible border invasion of illegal immigrants that the previous administration allowed to happen.
A violation of New York City's sanctuary city law.
It doesn't look good for sure, and I think it was a huge mistake. We're the ultimate city of immigrants.
A decision Adams stands behind.
If you harm innocent people and those innocent people are documented or undocumented, you don't have the right to be in this country with your violence.
The day after Adams announced the shift in policy, the Justice Department moved to drop the criminal corruption charges against him, leading to allegations of a quid pro quo.
It's incumbent upon Eric Adams to set this record straight. He has basically, in my view, he has this week to do it. His entire political career, his time as mayor, everything comes down to this week.
According to the DOJ, the paperwork to dismiss the case was filed days prior. Adams has denied any wrongdoing. A federal judge now ordering the Justice Department to explain why they decided to dismiss the bribery case against Adams. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Hamas has told Israel they will free 6 living hostages on Saturday. That is more than was expected. Included among them are 2 Israelis held hostage since well before the war started. Avera Mengistu has been held for 10 years. Hisham al-Sayed has been captive in Gaza for 9.5 years. Hamas will also hand over 4 bodies of hostages. The Iranian-backed terror group says that among those to return to Israel will be the youngest hostages taken, the Bibas children, Kafir and Ariel, who were abducted at 9 months and 4 years old, as well as their mother, Shiri. Yarden Bibas, their father, was released from captivity on February 1st. Meantime, today is the deadline for Israeli troops to leave 5 locations in Lebanon, but the military says they're temporarily staying put. As part of a ceasefire agreement with the militant group Hezbollah, the troops are supposed to withdraw from a buffer zone that the Lebanese army and United Nations peacekeepers will patrol. But an Israeli military spokesperson says the spots help keep their nearby citizens safe. Hezbollah's leader says there can be no excuses for delays. Southwest Airlines is slashing 15% of its corporate workforce. The company's CEO says it's an unprecedented move to try to cut costs. This after the airline settled with an activist investor who's pressuring Southwest to increase profits and boost the stock price. Shares are down nearly 10% so far this year. Southwest says the cuts, which are mostly corporate and overhead and leadership positions, will save more than $200 million this year. And a recall alert. The FDA has increased the severity of their recall of almost 2.5 million cases made good brand granola bars to Class 2. The Chicago-based food company says the bars could contain metal coming from a brush bristle used in the manufacturing process. The FDA's rating means the product could cause temporary or medically reversible health consequences. Made Good will fully refund any products on the recall list. list. Dollars gambled on sporting events has jumped astronomically over the last few years. According to JAMA, since the U.S. Supreme Court opened the door for all states to legalize sports betting back in 2018, gambling wagers have gone from $4.9 billion in 2017 to $121 billion in 2023. Researchers also found online searches for gambling addiction and similar terms also increased dramatically in states with new sports books. For the first time in more than 7 years, the CDC has classified this year's flu virus as being highly severe. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares what's behind the recent surge and why it continues to spread.
Hey there, everybody. Recent report from the CDC breaks down why flu cases are likely continuing to spread. It's mainly because we spread this virus when we cough or sneeze or even talk. And most of us are contagious in the first 3 days when we might not even know that what we're feeling is the flu.
It was pretty bad this time.
That's what one of our Sinclair meteorologists, Paul Poteet, said he felt a few weeks ago when he had the flu.
I was on my back for about 3 days, probably either on the couch or, flat on my back, and just no energy.
No energy, body aches, chills. That's what Ohio's Tri-Health Family Medicine specialists say they, too, have been seeing in those who come in with flu symptoms.
Lots of cough, lots of bronchitis, and in some cases also pneumonia.
As for why it's spreading so rapidly this season, early data on the flu vaccine shows it's only about 35% effective.
The vaccine doesn't have real strong coverage this year.
And less than half of adults have chosen to get the shot this season. It also appears the flu is lingering longer this year.
Still, to this day, a couple of weeks later, I have a lot of congestion, it seems, in my head, and I'm still blowing my nose a lot.
And since you can be contagious up to 7 days after becoming sick, it may be spreading that way, too. Finally, while the cold weather doesn't make you sick, even though...
My mom always said so.
It does keep more of us indoors, which makes it hard to stay away from others who have the flu and pass it along to us. Now, one other way to reduce your odds the flu will spread from a contaminated surface or person to you: keep your own hands off your own face, especially your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonas reporting.
Coming up, the new steps police are taking to respond to rampant drug use on the streets of Seattle. We are reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start in Seattle with complaints about drug use on the streets.
There are blocks around Belltown that are saturated in unhindered drug use.
For all the fentanyl and everything, they just sad because it's killing a lot of people.
George Araya is addicted to crack cocaine, and while he doesn't want to be homeless, he says the help being offered is a bad fit.
They come around asking for shelters, but shelters, it's so much going on there, It's so much dirty and then all this, you can get disease.
Meantime, a lot of neighbors are paying the price.
It's constant fights over territory, over drugs, over spots for tents.
Neighbors have been complaining to police and city leaders for months, and now the commander of the West Precinct is offering to meet and sort out what other steps can be taken.
As these skaters take the ice, there's so much on their young minds. With every twist and turn, they're coping through tragedy.
Miss everyone so much.
Skating isn't the same for Sofia Bizkorovainaya.
It feels different, of course, because usually my coach would be standing right there.
Sofia's coach died nearly 3 weeks ago in the midair collision over the Potomac. 18 kids, parents, and coaches from 2 local skating clubs died in that crash, including Sofia's best friend, Everly Livingston.
Now how people say, oh, she wouldn't hurt a fly. So, flies, they would drop because it's so cold at the rink, and she would pick them, scoop them up, put them next to the heater, and release them outside. And she was just one of the sweetest people I knew.
Eliminating the Department of Education is equivalent to giving up on our future.
Rhode Island educators with a strong message Monday about potential federal funding cuts. The U.S. Department of Education has told schools and colleges to eliminate DEI programs or risk losing federal funding, leaving districts across the country scrambling for guidance.
It is really important for us to really take a look at what that means, because what is clear to me is that there's a lack of understanding of what DEI is.
Right now, RIDE gets about $275 million in federal funding. Most of that is distributed to public schools across the state. As the president also plans to try to get rid of the U.S. Department of Education, state leaders fear cuts could impact services for low-income families, meal programs, CTE learning, and special education services.
Workers in Connecticut are taking care of a baby seal rescued from the streets of New Haven. On Sunday, police found the baby male gray seal near a bridge underpass. They took the animal to Mystic Aquarium, where employees are now feeding him to get him to a healthy weight. They'll then bring the seal back to the ocean. The aquarium says it looks out for wandering baby seals in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New York from February to March each year. Something sweet to end your day. That's going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tonight.